Hey, welcome to The Snake's Paw. I'm Andrew, and as you can see, I am an animated wizard in front of a green screen. We don't usually have a lot going on visually on these YouTube videos, but today is a special exception. Not long ago, friend of the show, MrCreepyPasta, invited the Snake's Paw crew to make an appearance at a live event, specifically a virtual reality horror con, meaning the whole event was in VR spaces with VR avatars. So me, Jack, and Snake's Paw regular Helen got to do a live basic pitch from inside of an air bubble on the ocean floor. And this event was world class, y'all. They shot video of everything, and there are close-ups, there are wide shots, there are long pans across an adoring audience of cats and anime characters, and I think a whale. It was really fun, and so we want to share it with you in its entirety. If you listen to the podcast feed of The Snake's Paw, you'll also find this episode there as pure audio and a good bit more tightly edited, but we're planning on making video a more regular part of the experience around here. So expect to see our meat space selves showing up in the YouTube feed again soon. Specifically, we have several things coming down the pipeline right now, all in the behind the paw vein. One, our co-host Matthew has a book coming out in a matter of days called Her Changing Face. So we'll be talking about that and sharing an excerpt of the audiobook narrated by yours truly. And two, that book represents Matthew's first steps into the world of self-publishing, which is what Jack's career has been built on. So we also thought it'd be a good time to share a conversation about how self-publishing works. And three, speaking of Jack's career, the other thing we'll be sharing soon relates to Jack's earliest writing for the general public, the first draft of the Tales from the Gas Station stories, which went up on Reddit quite a few years ago. Those stories recently came back to life in a way that Jack will tell us more about. All right, those are our trailers. Now for the feature presentation. The virtual horror con we attended had an Under the Sea theme, so for his basic pitch, Jack started there.
So usually what we do is one of us will pitch the half-baked story and we'll all flesh it out as a single iteration of something, like one movie or one book. In keeping with the special nautical theme, I did pick something aquatic and something horror, but I also am going to kind of branch away from what we usually do. I'm not going to do a single movie, because tonight what I want to do is show off one of my niche expertises, and that is knowledge of sequels and franchises, especially horror movie sequels and franchises. I told both of you beforehand that you should familiarize yourselves with the movie Jaws, and that's all I told you, right?
Yep.
So, are you familiar with Jaws sequels?
The idea that they happen and kind of how unhinged they are from the original. That's about the extent of what I've gotten. Also that one of them was in 3D.
Yes, Jaws 3, actually. So, what I love about horror movie franchises is that they give the horror movie permission to get more and more ridiculous. But what I've discovered is that horror movie franchises actually start to follow a sort of pattern. If you watch closely enough, you can almost tell what the next movie is going to do, or more likely to do. And what's really crazy is if you look at the history of Jaws, the movie, they almost did it. There was a moment where they came very close to following the same pattern as all of the classic horror movie franchises, and they, by the grace of God, did not do it. So what I want to do first is a little history lesson, and then I'm going to ask you to help me develop what an alternate universe would look like where Jaws 4 was not the end of the Jaws franchise. So,
okay.
Amazing.
The first Jaws, I think, hopefully everybody kind of has a rough idea of what the first Jaws was about. Giant shark.
Need a bigger boat.
That's right. Need a bigger boat. Giant shark terrorizing a coastal town. That's basically it, right? You don't need anything else besides that. If you look at the novel, there were like some deeper themes of, government oversight, but
The Captain Ahab-esque shark hunter who gets swallowed.
yes. Ultimately, it's just a giant shark terrorizes coastal town. Chief Brody kills the shark. Voila, you got a great, nearly perfect movie. Jaws 2. It's almost like a rehashing of the first one. This is very common in horror movie franchises where 2 says they want to do the same thing that happened in 1, just a little bit bigger, a little bit better, and ultimately the reception is kind of not quite as good. It's just ho-hum. 3 starts trying to do something a little bit different. It does 3D. That's actually very common. This is where there was almost an expectation of what was going to happen in Jaws 4. And Jaws 4 was a beautiful disaster piece where everything was working against it. It was an obvious cash grab, but there were clearly some people there who were trying to follow the rules of horror franchises. So in the 4th horror movie, it's not always the 4th one. Sometimes it's a little earlier, sometimes it's a little later, but this is very common with certain movies where the killer in the franchise is not a supernatural killer. Jason Voorhees being a great example, or Mike Myers, or the killer from Slumber Party Massacre, where where the killer is just someone from our real world, not supernatural. But as the sequels keep going, you got to find a reason to explain why they keep coming back. And then in the 4th one, suddenly they are supernatural. There's suddenly a switch got flipped. So in the 6th Friday the 13th, Tommy Jarvis stabs a stake through the decomposing corpse of Jason Voorhees. It gets struck by lightning. All of a sudden, this human killer becomes an undead, magical, supernatural killer. It happens several times throughout the Halloween series, but there's the Halloween movie with Paul Rudd. They decided that all of a sudden Michael Myers is actually being cursed by this ancient druid curse that gives people supernatural powers. The killer in the 2nd Slumber Party Massacre suddenly is an undead killer. Anyway, all this to say, what does this have to do with Jaws 4? Well, if you read the novelization of Jaws 4, you find out that the reason why this shark is terrorizing this family and following them across the world and across the ocean is because of a voodoo curse that was put on the family by a man named Papa Jacques. I swear to you, this is all real. And this was in the original script for Jaws the Revenge. And this is where the name The Revenge comes from. And then someone somewhere decided that that was ridiculous, that was too far. So even though you have sharks that are literally roaring like a lion, they thought, well, you know what, we're going to try to keep this a little grounded. And they cut that entire subplot out of the movie. And that, my friends, was the moment when Jaws stopped taking this course and suddenly just became a franchise ender.
So wait. Walk me through this for a second. So we get to making Jaws 4. We're experiencing the dilemma of classic stakes bloat. It's harder and harder to make things get bigger and better and crazier without getting weird and campy.
Yes.
So they're trying to verge over into weird and campy without getting all the way there. And they say, all right, what says Martha's Vineyard like voodoo? And they get a voodoo curse on the person that the shark is hunting. So now the shark is the Ahab character. Am I clear on this so far?
About as clear as the movie could have possibly made it. Technically speaking,
you read the novelization of the 4th volume, I suppose.
Yes. Technically speaking, the curse...
You wrote the novelization of the 4th volume.
No, God. The family was cursed to constantly have sharks chase and eat them, which retroactively explained why Chief Brody was hunted by sharks in the first movie.
All right.
Okay, so now that I've set up that entire premise for you, what I propose is if we can do an 8-movie franchise, I'll put forth to you what cliche happens approximately at each sequel, and you guys are going to have to find a way to describe what that Jaws movie would look like. Don't worry, because by the 5th movie, none of the original characters are going to be alive. So by number 5, the only character that you need to worry about is the shark.
Okay, got it. Wait.
Great.
Last question. Does the original shark keep coming back? Because it bites a scuba tank and explodes, right?
Oh, okay. So, yeah, no, each movie technically has a different shark. Or does it? Oh.
Got it. Okay.
Okay. So we're operating at this point with the fourth movie has established that the shark is supernatural and has supernatural powers. So if we're following all of this, I believe the fifth movie, according to my intricate notes, is usually approximately the place where you will see Texas Chainsaw did this, Phantasm did this, the Friday reboot did this, the Halloween reboot did this. Okay, so yeah, I think this is going to be number 5. Number 5 is where you get a humanizing villain backstory, where you start to feel sorry and you understand why the killer became the way they are. So flashback to the shark's childhood. Where did the trauma come from? You guys have approximately 5 minutes to keep us on schedule.
Okay.
Okay, well, I'm ready. I'm ready for this one, Andrew.
Okay. Well, so
yeah.
What comes first to my mind is that, I mean, one, the shark's parents have to be more impressive than the sharks. Maybe there's kind of a Cthulhu-esque being that is mom or dad. We can table that for the moment. If we are embracing the Ahab parallels, maybe what we do is the white whale from Moby Dick is the shark's mother and has given the shark a really brutal, challenging upbringing that hinges on a quest of... Helen, any ideas?
Okay. I'm not sure about the quest, but I do like, I feel like parent backstory is the best way to create villain stories. And I'm thinking about this incredible show I saw in Edinburgh called Space Hippo, y'all. And what happened is they sent this hippo mother out into space, and the hippo mother just wanted to get back to its child. And by the time it was able to get back and there was sacrifice and adventure, baby hippo had died. So I'm thinking about what death befell a beloved maternal figure of the shark that is causing it to, want to go after these people, and then the curse just kind of is on top of it. It's not the shark's fault that they're cursed, but it's got to be something about Martha's Vineyard is where the space station is, like the NASA center.
The mother is Cthulhu and has, by being destroyed by having the prow of a ship driven into it, a la either Call of Cthulhu or Little Mermaid, whichever reference is available to us.
Wait, I have to jump in here real quick. 2 of these aspects actually exist in the lore already. The voodoo shark is killed in the same way that Cthulhu and Ursula are killed at the end of the 4th movie. They drive a broken piece of a ship through her. And also in the 3rd movie, which got retconned in the 4th, the mom shark is attacking the SeaWorld stand-in because they accidentally killed her son. Okay, proceed.
The SeaWorld stand-in, it attacks a theme park?
Oh, yeah, that's the 3D movie.
Oh, brilliant. Okay.
Well, brilliant's a word.
It's a word I'm willing to say, tentatively. Well, to the space hippo point, and highly recommended in the crowd, mother is sympathetic and lost. Shark is on a revenge mission. What's the tie between Vengeful Shark and the people that Vengeful Shark is after? What did this family do in the past to earn this generational curse?
What does it say in the book version? Does it say what caused the curse, Jack?
I straight up do not remember.
In a footnote on page 273.
Also, I love what you were saying about the space hippo, because Jaws 6, if we're following the pattern, and I've got my receipts here. Friday the 13th, Part 10, Leprechaun Part 4, Hellraiser Bloodlines, Cloverfield 3. What do they all have in common? They take the killer to space.
Yes.
That's right. Jason Voorhees, the Leprechaun, the Cenobites, they all eventually end up in outer space. How do you do Jaws 6 in outer space?
I mean, it feels like a crossover with Sharknado is maybe in order by the time we get this far. And the winds have gotten extremely forceful. And I can use this as an opportunity to grind my favorite axe, which is that me and some of our other crew being located in Louisiana, I always hoped that before Sharknado dried up that there would be an installment called Sharknado versus Hurrigator. And so it could be that this aerial combat between different ocean-faring and freshwater-faring beasts just got more intense and higher up in the stratosphere until finally, whoosh, the the air barrier was broken.
The air barrier.
But
we are not scientists, but yeah,
we'll hire a consultant for that. Yeah, so there's no air barrier anymore, and the shark does what sharks do in space, which is it vomits out all of its internals, and now its digestive system is like leading it around. And
oh my lord!
Yeah, I mean, you want raised stakes? There we go. Digestion horror meets space meets sympathetic shark who we wish
he stops being sympathetic. They retcon that at the end of the last one. So, Helen, any notes? Anything to add to vomiting?
Okay, I feel like. I feel like, okay, that's where I'm going to get in trouble because I'm going to want to connect to the sequels, and I know that they kind of live separately from each other, loosely connected by shark.
Bring it, raise the bar.
If the family is still under this curse, because I'm assuming that it hasn't been broken in the previous one, is like, do they have to literally go to space and like live on the space station or live in some kind of spaceship to survive the shark? But of course, the shark is going to find a way to get to space to
oh my god,
enact its revenge.
Helen,
but
if I could just
like the idea of the vomiting.
If I could just jump in here and just say I've got this mental image of like, the space station is just like huge, basically a seaside town, and there's like the horny teenagers who are like, hey, you want to go space swimming? And they like go out in space, and then the shark gets them, and everyone's like, you can't go space swimming anymore. We got to shut down the space beach.
We're going to need a bigger space station.
Yeah, that'll work.
Absolutely. Yes.
Okay, y'all. So,
I love it. We became astronauts to escape from this voodoo curse, and yet.
Okay, so that is let's see, 4, 5, 6, so 7. If we're following the general pattern, this is usually where you will see Predator did this, Tremors did this, again Hellraiser did this, Evil Dead did this, Pearl did this. An entire movie where they just run out of ideas and they decide to go back in time, and you see the killer in a completely other time period. Tremors did this. They went back to the Old West days. So pick a fun ancient time period or era that the shark could suddenly show up in and make Jaws 7.
I mean, my first instinct is to go, prehistoric, and then we get, like, there's no humans, so we've got to, like, fight, giant woolly mammoths or T-Rexes or dinosaurs. But there's also something so delightfully absurd about, I don't know, like, the Yuan or Ming dynasty in China. Do you know what I mean? And just having this like shark in the middle of a place or time period that it wouldn't necessarily have been culturally specific. So what do you think, Andrew?
I'm with you. Either maybe we're in like Edo period Japan, where it's very elegant and very cultured, and you hear the Jaws theme on like a koto. And from that kind of beautifully sculptural, kind of over-the-top movie version of Edo period Japan, we go into just the enormous violence or the shark attacks could be sort of metaphorical. They could be kind of a Buto dance or something like that. But I really love the dinosaur idea because, of course, prehistoric sharks were even bigger and crazier.
Right. That's what I'm thinking. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I've just got
one of the dinosaurs could have cast the voodoo curse in the first place.
Oh, yes, of course. But real quick,
true.
I got a mental picture of like samurai out on a boat that they probably would have no business. I don't know. Maybe they do. I don't know anything about samurai. Just like I know they have swords and they're trying to stab the shark with their swords. And maybe like for some reason the shark is also wearing like a kimono or something.
Well, okay. Yeah, here's what I was thinking. Yeah, is that like we could go back in time, but we could also abstract it even more. So now it's like an allegory of a shark, and it is a samurai who wears like garb that is shark colored. And there's something about the very end of it that you realize it's the shark that we've known for the past 6 movies, and like it's the spirit of the shark that then will go into movie number 1 and beyond.
Gosh.
So maybe we get like
cursed
human...
to be reincarnated. Yeah.
Y'all are putting more effort into this franchise than any horror franchise has actually done. But I love it. Okay, so are we ready to move to the next one? Because the next one is one of my favorites.
How many are we doing? 8 or 12? 12? How many are we doing?
You've got 4 more to go. Okay.
I'm ready. Let's go.
Okay, so this is one of my favorite ones, and my receipts for this: Gremlins did it, Evil Dead did it, Child's Play did it, Nightmare on Elm Street did it. And that is where you take a somewhat grounded, scary story and you just turn it into a wacky comedy. The difference between Evil Dead 1 and Evil Dead 2, the fact that Child's Play had a movie where Britney Spears is literally run off the road and killed. So, okay. You take Jaws, everyone's being very afraid of in these other movies. Even when they're in space, they're treating it kind of seriously. Turn it into the wackiest comedy you can.
The shark wants to be a clown.
Yes, clown shark, or I was thinking
Clown
when in the franchise is it a musical? Like, is this a musical?
This would be the musical, yes.
Movie. Yeah.
Could you imagine they're just riffing on that theme?
Yes. Well, and then I don't know, Andrew, you said clown, and I'm like, okay, so like now this is he's in his Joker era.
Yeah.
Oh, that's like sad, angry clown shark.
I'm putting in mind of the fellow in King Arthur and the Quest for the Holy Grail who just like keeps trying to turn things into a musical and they just keep getting violent. So the shark keeps trying to come up and like express its love for the people on the water in song, and they just keep throwing things at it.
Yes, I love that. Yes. He's misunderstood. Now we're back. He's lost a little bit of empathy for the past couple of sequels, but it's back now.
That's right.
And there needs to be like that great scene on the beach where it's like, you know, like bright sunny colors and, you know, people are doing that like water dance of the 60s. But it can't. Something happens. Yeah, I love that, Andrew, that something terrible happens in every happy song because the shark can't help it.
The shark is wearing a clown nose, but everyone thinks it's blood. So there's this big like bright red thing that comes out first. And
so
everyone assumes.
Yes, or like his like little mouth is like, you know, like clown lips, but they think it's because, that it's blood.
Yes.
So he's just, so this is a shark who's just trying to like cheer up kids with cancer. And he like comes out with a wisecrack and they all like freak out and then trip over each other and someone drowns trying to get away and he just gets a bad rap for it.
And it's specifically Kids with Cancer Week at this beach.
It's not Shark Week. It's Kids with Cancer.
Holy shit.
Yeah, that would be a pretty dark comedy right there. Where like the real killer, the real unstoppable supernatural killer was cancer the whole time, and
oh no!
And then you just have to make jokes about it. No, I think I just heard some groans. I'm sorry.
I think we have a clear framing device where this whole thing is being told by a grandfather with a very big, thick storybook, and he's the one who says that line at the end that the real villain was cancer all along. Great.
So I'm sorry. So it's like Princess Bride, where like the little kid is like, "Read me another story, Grandpa," and he's reading the story of Wacky Jaws. Oh, I like that, because then there's almost like a how much of this is he really reading, or is he just making up on the spot to like not tell him the actual novelization of Jaws where everyone dies?
Yeah, and this one's called Lips or something like that.
Lips or gums. The shark doesn't have teeth.
Gums. Oh, gums.
Gums.
Yes,
the killer he shark. Definitely doesn't have teeth, so he could never kill them, even if like yes.
He's a shark who lost all his teeth. He got washed up. He had to find a new identity, and he decided to be
total accident.
Anyway, on we go.
Okay, all right. So what are we up to now? Let me see. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. All right. So this one does come earlier. I had to do some math and decide where because it's always different. This seems like an appropriate place for this. And I have a suggestion if you can't come up with one for yourself, but my comps for this are Halloween, Friday the 13th, Nightmare on Elm Street, and Saw. In each of these franchises, there's one movie that has nothing to do with the rest of the movies. The killer is not even in this movie. So, Jaws 9, is it 9? 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yeah, Jaws 9 is not about Jaws. Jaws is not in it, but it's called Jaws 9. I recommend Killer Duck, but you can do whatever you want.
Run with it. I want to hear more about this. I'm already sold.
So, yeah, it takes place in the Jaws universe. Ostensibly follows the same pattern, but instead of a seaside town terrorized by a shark, it's like an inland, like, you know, one of the... I'm trying to think of a state that doesn't have... But they have ponds, so you have to be... So, yes, you have a killer duck or what have you. And then instead of the...
Fresh water.
Instead of the mayor being like, we can't shut down the beaches because that's our sole source of revenue... It'll be, you can't shut down the city park. I don't care if there is allegedly a duck eating people.
I'm thinking, like, is the duck giant like Jaws, or is this like a very inauspicious duck?
Oh, both of those are funny.
Really obviously mechanical.
Yes, you have a terrible animatronic duck. I like both versions of this, but I really like the idea that they're out there throwing duck seed, like in cups, and then this enormous duck comes out of a pond that it has no business being this big in, like eats a whole mouthful of duck seed, and the guy like pops up and he's like, "We're gonna need a bigger duck cage."
Yeah, that's great. Yep. What are some other, because I feel like y'all are both more familiar with original Jaws more recently than I am. Are there any villain-esque figures in one that we could pull on for this? That aren't the shark?
Okay, so in the movie, the ostensibly the real villain of it is, I'm not talking about like abstract things like obsession. It's going to be probably the mayor who refuses to shut down the beach. In the book, it's actually the mafia. It makes sense in the book. They're controlling the mayor. But I would say the mayor is really, he's the worst. He's the one who deserves to get his comeuppance, but never does because he's smart enough to stay out of the water. Maybe that same mayor retires to this town, and he can finally get eaten by the duck.
Ooh. Or I was thinking, like, I don't want to get rid of the duck, so this is the alternate one.
Okay.
But is there... it's just so delightful. Is there like something to this town that the mayor, this Jaws things happened, but it became a place for people to go, like a big tourist attraction, like scary tourism, trauma tourism. But now it's been a couple of years, and like the people aren't going to this town anymore because it's been too long. People don't remember the story, and so he goes on a killing rampage, and maybe he blames it on this duck. But it's so that people come back to the town. But actually, the duck's like chill and cool.
Helen, you just accidentally described Friday the 13th 5. That is almost exactly the plot. Like, the killer is not Jason. It's actually the ambulance driver. Spoilers. Who tries to blame everything on Jason Voorhees. And there's also a little bit of Freddy versus Jason in there, where like everyone's forgotten about Freddy, so he hires or tricks Jason into coming to Elm Street to start the murders back up again, so everyone will suddenly remember that Freddy was a thing. So good instincts.
Nice.
I love the idea that the mayor...
Or it's a giant killer duck. That's cool too.
The giant duck was a metaphor for corruption. Wow, we're spending way more time on this one installment than I was expecting, but I love it. Because the next one's going to be really silly, if y'all are ready.
Well, and just as a placeholder, Giant Duck can, of course, be the start of its own separate franchise, so there's a whole other thread to be followed here, and if this is installment 1 in the Duck franchise, then things are going to get really weird when we get to installment 8 of the Duck franchise.
Yes, it is. So Slumber Party Massacre did that same thing, where there was Slumber Party Massacre 1, 2, and 3, and then 2 branched out into, what was it, Sorority House Massacre, and they had their own franchise that was tied to it. Kind of like... And
this is where, like, Jack, you are just enough of a troll. You're not much of a troll, but you're just a little bit of a troll. And because I've never seen anything, I have been going through this entire conversation so far not actually sure if Slumber Party Massacre is a real thing. And if afterwards I Google and I find out that this is a whole made-up franchise that you are sticking into this conversation, just as an Easter egg, I'm going to be so happy.
No, I was going to do that with the Slasher Man franchise that my next book is about, which is part of why I've researched all of this. Slasher Man, it's perfect. Anyway, no, Slumber Party Massacre, 100% real. The first one, it's about a guy who kills with a drill, and then they're like, well, we killed him at the end of the first one. Let's just put in another killer, and then the second killer turns out to be supernatural. Like I said, there are rules to franchises. Okay, So I love the duck thing. We should definitely develop this a little bit further in our free time. Let's see, what's 1, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Jaws 10.
10.
All right, my comps for this. Scream, Friday the 13th, Leprechaun, and this isn't real, but I wrote it down anyway, Babe, the movie about the pig. All right, what do all of these franchise episodes have in common? Eventually, you leave the small town where all the stuff happens. Jason takes Manhattan. Leprechaun in the hood. Babe in the big city, yes. The most recent Scream. So eventually you're going to leave. You're going to go into the big city. How are we going to fit Jaws in the big city?
So the shark could be in the sewers.
Yes. Okay.
Or the singing shark goes to Broadway. One of the two.
Helen?
And then it's sort of, if the singing shark goes to Broadway, then the entire framework of that movie is more of a Sex and the City type thing. It's a single shark trying to
make it in the big city.
Yeah.
I love the idea.
I'm trying to think, Ellen? No, I'm just thinking about Shark, Sex and the City. It's very funny. I'm trying to think of what's the big city to a shark? You know, Babe grows up on a farm, so of course the big city's got to be like a very metropolitan place. But I'm like, I don't know, is it the ocean? Are we going international? Do you know? We're about to mess up some beaches, in the UK or off the coast of Africa. Is that the big city of the shark? Is that
oh my gosh! So I just had a thought. I'm just going to throw it out there. What if the big city isn't Manhattan? What if the shark goes to Atlantis?
Was and then right there with you, tip of my tongue.
You have look at where we are right now. The shark suddenly goes to Atlantis, and you have all these giant mega buildings where they're doing Atlantis business stuff, and the Atlantis businessmen, because it's a very corporate Atlantis, because it's the year 20.
Yeah, Atlantis business stuff. TM, got it.
Right, the business factory.
Yeah, for sure.
That's as far as I got, you guys. You're gonna have to pick up the thread and run with that.
No, I think that's great. And for some reason, there's something delightful also. I always love a little meta moment in a horror film that above the surface, things have been really calm, and people are like, oh, I wonder what Jaws has been up to. And then hard cut to him just smashing through a business building in Atlantis, and the screams of all of the underwater people. And then above the surface cut to be wow, it's just so chill. I wonder, maybe he's gone.
Maybe he finally found what he was going to do. I wasn't sure if it was going to be him smashing through buildings, or if it was going to be Shark Jaws, Sex and the City, where he's competing for an internship or something, and he's got his little resume in his mouth. He's swimming up the elevator to the top floor of the business factory.
Yes, just give me a chance.
Well, if it's all underwater, for some reason, the thing my mind has been trying to wrap around is whether the CEO, who in this case I'm picturing as King Triton from The Little Mermaid, is on the top floor or the bottom floor. So whether the shark gets to King Triton first or last. I don't know why my mind is riveting on that, but that's the image in my head. You thought you'd be safe on the top floor, but
also, and I'm not very good with puns, but it's right there. It's got to be the CEO, right?
I love that. I've been sitting over here trying to figure out some kind of joke to make about big fish, small pond. Now it's the big pond, but CEO is gold.
Well, big fish, small pond makes me definitely want to pursue the resume trajectory as this shark gets rejected in favor of bigger and crazier sea monsters. So this can be a sort of like finding your career in a competitive field story. So the shark comes down into Atlantis, makes a crash entry into an office building. King Triton is there working at his desk, like signing piles of very damp paper. And then he's like, that's all you got? This office has been busted into better by seaweed. And on we go into, he's got to up his business building crashing game.
Oh my gosh, I don't know what it was about the way you just described King Triton, but I almost like feel like there's like some chemistry where like now Jaws has to try to impress the boss, and the boss is kind of like, oh, I like this new intern, and then like there's maybe a romance there. I'm getting so far away from Jason Takes Manhattan or
from slasher fic to slash fic in no time.
Nice. Okay, I think we just peaked. But I got one more sequel, and if we have time, a TV show. But we'll see if we get to that. All right.
Oh, great.
I think people can probably predict what the next movie is going to be, because pretty much every franchise eventually hits this next one. Like, name almost any big franchise, it's done it. And that is, and I hate to say it, the gritty reboot. So the rules behind this are they're trying to do the story that was really great back in the 80s. They're not going to do it quite as well, but they think maybe if they make it a little bit more realistic, it's going to make it better. So gritty reboot. It's 2024, whatever year we're in right now. Jaws is happening. No one has any knowledge of Jaws ever existing before because Jaws is brand new, even though this is going to be pitched as like Jaws 10 or Jaws X. This is a new Jaws origin story.
Jaws X is very good because it means 10, but we don't mean it that way. But it's also extreme Jaws. It's very good. I feel like since the animatronic shark was such a big part of the original Jaws, I feel like it's got to be like incredibly overproduced CGI shark that is somehow so overly produced that it's bad again. And it's got to be like a star vehicle, right? And like maybe it's in black and white.
And I don't know, this might be too meta for the concept that you've given us, Jack, but I also am thinking about how like Shark Week is a thing that arose almost as a response to Jaws, as like a actually sort of documentary type structure that's about sharks. Sharks don't have to always be this scary. In fact, they're interesting, biodiverse creatures. And then slowly Shark Week also just turned gradually into like exploitation. So if we wanted to be as meta as we usually want to be, there is a rumor that there's a really big, terrifying off the coast of Martha's Vineyard. And so the Shark Week people who have just not had a hit in a while are coming to do a sort of star vehicle. They have a sort of washed up movie star who's the host, as is occasionally the case with real Shark Week, but they can't find the actual shark. So they release a CGI shark into the water, and the CGI shark starts killing people.
Okay.
Question mark.
This. Ooh.
Okay.
I wonder too if like, okay, I like this like Shark Week angle, Andrew. What if they're going to do like a story of Jaws, and now we're like in mockumentary territory, but not Parks and Rec mockumentary, like Blair Witch mockumentary. So like lots of like grainy blur in the camera, and like all the people in there are like, this is so stupid, this is such a stupid movie, this wasn't like real or whatever. But then one of them actually gets eaten by an actual shark, which of course for the audience is a terrible CGI shark, but for them, is real, and now becomes a gritty documentary like of us watching these poor camera folks like get eaten by a shark. And Jaws lives again.
I love it. The only thing I would change or add is because this has to be a modern reboot and they have to like plaster all over that this is modern, some of the people on the ship are going to be like TikTokers or influencers or what have you. And they're going to be like filming it for their
well,
audience.
That's the first person, right? That's going to be the first person who gets killed in the movie. Yeah, for sure.
Oh, God. Oh, and their last stream is them like looking into the camera as they're being swallowed by the shark until the signal cuts out.
Yes.
We got a strong beginning to this thing.
Yeah.
It is the influencer who gets in out of their depth, as it were, is kind of today's version of how the original Jaws started, which was promiscuous, too sexy for her own sake young woman on the beach who dares to go, of all things, skinny dipping, and this kind of implicit like, well, maybe she was asking for it, maybe she led the shark on. That's kind of the flavor of the original, and an influencer would totally be there for now. Like, well, you wanted attention,
I never
you got some
even
attention.
analyzed it that way before. Wow. But yeah, okay, I guess it's not specific to Jaws. It's always like, oh, the slut has to get murdered early on, as another trope altogether. But yeah, no, I never pictured the first victim as being the slut victim. Wow. Okay. I think we have time, if we want to, mods tell me if we don't, to do also the follow-up short-lived 1 to 2 seasons maximum TV show that does not respect the original source material whatsoever. And I don't need to show you my receipts for this one because you probably know. But it almost feels like the rules to this are a screenwriter had an idea for a TV show that he was really excited about but couldn't get made. And then someone comes to them and says, I need you to adapt Jaws into a TV show. So they just control F to their main character and put Jaws in there.
Sure. I feel like the main constraint is, I mean, either it has to be a like serial shark hunting story, so a different shark gets killed every week, which feels like it's this process that we've just been doing, but like on speed. Or, and maybe this is the better way for us to go because it's different, is like the shark has to survive every installment because we need to have the shark around for next episode still. So
I feel like what you're doing is way too correct and good. What I mean is this has nothing to... All right, let me just give you a little pitch. First episode, Jaws just gets accepted to a new high school.
I was going to say, yes. I was like, it's got to be sitcom, like coming of age story. Yes, I'm with you, Jack. Continue.
There are all these cliques at the high school, and Jaws has to rise to the top. There are all these other characters that, like, the mean girl is for some reason named Chief Brody, even though it has nothing to do with Chief Brody. This is more the kind of I'm still bitter about 2 or 3 different TV shows kind of adaptation that I'm talking about.
Yeah, I think we've come back to the abstracted, like, human version, human allegory of Jaws. It's like a Big Mouth-esque Jaws, where, like, it's a kid with braces.
Yeah.
Yes.
Jaws ends up joining the Sharks, which is just like a social club.
Yes, exactly. But do you think in this one there's still bloodshed, or is it kind of like after school special-esque?
Oh, it's not after school special-esque.
Well,
okay.
And increasingly, I feel like high school stories are on a collision course with bloodshed stories. So you could put an early pin in like Hunger Games, but gradually merging over towards like Fourth Wing, where it's like, high school melodrama, but also someone dies constantly, and that's just the rules of the universe that we're in. This could totally be that like if you get a low grade, you just get eaten. You get sent to the basement or something like that.
Sent to the principal's office, and the principal is an apex predator of some sort.
Yeah.
Oh, the principal's an orca whale.
In this.
A little bit of Wednesday. So I didn't come out and say Wednesday or Velma, but Velma and Wednesday are the 2 that I'm thinking of, obviously.
Great. We might as well mirror their structure closely and save ourselves some time.
There you go. People can die every episode and no one treats it like a big deal because nothing matters because they didn't respect the source material. And Jack will always be bitter about it.
And the shark is like over it and misunderstood, and her name is Jaraldine.
Jaraldine has a sexy dance at one point, and it goes viral. I'm not knocking the actress or anything. The actress that we cast in this is going to do a fantastic job, but the series is still going to rub me the wrong way. Okay, wow.
And it's meta again.
Yes, and once again we're meta. Okay, there you go. That is all 10 movies that would have happened in the Jaws franchise. and the TV show that would have come out of it and lasted for 1 or 2 seasons. Well, okay, I think we have time for real quick rapid fire. This happens in a few franchises, but it doesn't happen in all of them. Crossover. Jaws versus blank other horror movie franchisee. I can recommend the Graboids from Tremors as like a nice little match, but anything else?
Yet again, Sharknado versus Hurrigator. Hurrigator is a real missed opportunity.
Okay, yeah, that's a good one. I changed my mind. Not Jaws versus Tremors. When the killer is a metaphor for grief, I'm thinking Jaws versus the Babadook. Jaws finds the book at the bottom of the ocean after Jaws loses his mother or something else like that and starts reading it.
And this is like 2 different, largely unseen villains. And so, what do you show for this entire movie?
You just show some very confused people
of panoramas of the
in a submarine who are like, "What is happening outside the submarine window right now?" Oh, you could be topical. It could be like billionaires who are just observing the ocean floor.
Oh no!
And then like they lose contact.
I'm really excited about like contemporary horror. Really is playing a lot with gender, a lot with power dynamics, and queering a lot of the genre. So like I'm super excited, especially about Babadook. Like let's go! I'm into it.
Okay, one last idea. Jaws, how would he do in the Saw universe? Say Jaws gets put in one of Jigsaw's traps.
There are movies that I have not seen because I just haven't gotten around to it, and there are movies that I have not seen because I have decided not to, and Saw is in the latter category, so you tell me.
Are you saying you haven't seen Saw?
Wow.
Took me a second.
Sorry.
I feel like Jaws would
Only
be
the worst.
Exploited in the Saw universe. Like he would be one of the things that people are subjected to.
Jigsaw would be like, you have to jump into this kiddie pool with Jaws and find the key.
Yes. But then maybe Jaws like helps the person and it becomes like a buddy movie.
Oh my gosh, a buddy comedy. Yeah, I think that's what we seriously want to see is Jaws as a protagonist helping people fight the monster.
Yes,
and
absolutely.
title-wise,
yes.
Jaws and Saw are a case of words that are so close together.
But there's
that you
no
want
way to
pun
portmanteau
them, or you
them.
want to portmanteau them, but there's just no way to do it.
Saw.
Just
Saw Jaw.
Just zoom tight.
Saw Jaw.
Okay, I think. Yeah, we did it. We got 2 minutes to spare, y'all.
We have beaten that shark to death. Let me really quickly just share a little bit about the show. If you enjoy this kind of like parasocial riff on all kinds of classic genre stuff, then we do basic pitches really regularly on the show, which again is called The Snake's Paw, and you can find it on YouTube. You can find it on all the podcast platforms. We also do a lot, like I mentioned earlier, of audio dramas. So if you like your stories a bit more followed through on, if you'd like to hear this kind of ridiculous stuff actually scripted out, fully performed, and scored, because we just go that far with some of these ideas. We've got a space opera called Starship Mudskipper, where Jack has really explored all the horrific ramifications of teleportation technology. We have a wordplay-loaded comedy noir series called Noir City Blues. We have kind of a technology horror that's been going on recently called Medium. So many other stories to check out, and more of these people. Who couldn't want that? So thank you all very much for your time. Thanks for hanging out and listening.
Thank you, everybody.
See you out there. Enjoy the rest of the fest.
Woo.
Thanks, y'all. Woohoo!
All right, I'm going to go out and just hang out with people.
That's our show today, y'all. Again, you heard the voices of Jack Townsend, Helen Jacks, and me, Andrew Ferrier. Thanks again to Mr. Creepypasta for the invite to the event and all the folks who are helping run it. Y'all run a tight ship, even if it is sunken to the bottom of the ocean. We're planning on being back here again really soon. See you then.